Who is beeping me here?
Folks, we are live. The beeping is Mike. Just let you know.
Beep.
We don't know why. By the way,
Mm.
welcome to the Talking Crit live stream. I am Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. Adjacent to me, screen right, is Dad Mike Battalato, my once a week work spouse. And below us is Jim Kitchen, our wayward child.
I'm
Oh,
more like the troll in the basement, I think.
this roll. He lives in our basement. We're a real gaming group. Holy crap. Folks, welcome to Talking Crit. Boy, do we have stuff to talk about.
All right.
I look like I'm in a hold.
I know you
Look,
look like
folks.
you look like you're ready
I'm not
for your mugshot picture.
I'm not in a holding cell somewhere. I'm still at the beach. I'm just in a corner of the living room here.
So last week we ended the show. We had it ended on a positive note, and I just want to say that in the space of 1 week, the entire world blows up.
Oof.
And I don't mean just like a small explosion. No, I mean thermonuclear. So how does this all start? Last week, we were talking about the foreword to the Making of Dungeons & Dragons, the 50th anniversary book that came out earlier this year, and how there was a page in the book that had a lot of sore notes to it. And so I'll kind of dance around some things, but let's start at the top. I think we have said continually on this show that, number one, all of the people involved in the creation of Dungeons & Dragons are human beings. They all had foibles. They all had idiosyncrasies, and it's never going to be a perfect world. People aren't perfect. The problem with people putting your heroes on pedestals is that you can start to see things that you never wanted to see. And I don't think anybody who knows, particularly the history of Gary when he was out in California, I think all of this has a hand in it of understanding who Gary Gygax was and Dave Arneson and so on. But there was an element to the forward of the Making of Dungeons & Dragons that seemed a little bit like the needle going across the record noise, and it hurt some people's feelings. We talked about it last week, and certainly the impression a bunch of us have is that sort of got thrown in at the last minute or whatnot. But one of the people who has admitted to having a hand in this is the person at Wizards of the Coast named Jason Tondreau. And Jason has spoken to this. We're going to get to a quote from Jason here in a little bit, but let me explain why it was a thermonuclear explosion last week. If you were for some reason in a cellar on a deserted island, or just didn't pay attention to anything. Elon Musk made an unfortunate tweet last week highlighting some of this and using what I will simply call as regrettable language, because it's inflammatory language. And truthfully, I think it brings the focus in on what Wizards of the Coast have spent the last couple of years doing, and which we have rightly made fun of here and there, all across the last year that I've been sort of on the show. And one of the things that we try very, very hard to do with Talking Crit, and I think if you look at the three of us when we're at conventions or whatnot, is we do really try to stay out of politics. And the problem is that a lot of this comes very, very close to being political in a way that nobody wants to have it be political. So I'm going to try to tap dance through a minefield and talk to this briefly. Tonight, we want to talk about Jason Tondreau, some of the comments that he's made. But what I would begin with is this. We are all guilty of surrounding ourselves with people who say the things that we sort of want to hear.
Right.
If your Facebook feed doesn't have a lot of back and forth or seems one-sided, that's a painful indicator as to how much of a bubble you live in. And I think that the worst part about all of this is it demonstrates that some people's bubbles are pretty thick, and it also demonstrates that some people's skin is pretty thin. There's a number of comments that Jason Tondreau has made Before this blew up, he's made some statements after this blew up. He's talked about having a Justice League with some other notable people within the industry. We'll touch on that briefly. The problem is that if you try to look at this through just a political lens, you make a mistake. You make a mistake in that you essentially want to assign or sort of throw animosity at one particular political element, and I don't think that's necessarily the right thing. We have all seen revisionist history. And when I say revisionist history is where you take what was and you revise it to try to make it something else. The most notable example of this that brings absolute just bile and loathing is when somebody talks about the Holocaust and talks about, well, the Holocaust didn't happen, or the Holocaust, oh, it wasn't as bad. And that's where everybody in the room that has any shreds of common decency and common sense says, whoa, time out, stop right there. And so revisionist history is a problem. I'm not saying that the forward to the making of the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons book has revisionist history. It has some things in it that and I'll be the first to say I didn't put 80 hours of my life this past week trying to look up every single example. And believe me, if you have some annotated notes about where specific things that got mentioned in the forward appear, send them to me. I'd love to read them. I'd love to know where some of this is, but I don't know. But the thing is that the most regrettable comment after Elon Musk's, I'll paraphrase, screw those guys, is that Jason Condro decided to have a statement. He made a public comment where he essentially talks about any of the concerns coming from grognards, and we'll have the specific quote. Any of the complaints coming from grognards are just dismissed out of hand. And there's nothing like taking a segment of your audience that wants to spend money on your products and telling them that they may in fact go fornicate a hat. That's a real problem. That's a problem for a lot of different things. At no point in this show do you ever see us saying, whatever you do, you should buy this unless you're this. And if you're that, I don't want you buying my products, or I don't want you being a part of that. Gatekeeping is everywhere. Gatekeeping is everywhere you look. I have a dabbling interest in ham radio. And one of the most notable things about ham radio is that every time there's been a natural disaster over the last 5-10 years, you have a resurgence of people desperately interested in ham radio because they were cut off with no power and no way to communicate with people. And they see a $30 or $40 radio on Amazon, and they want to throw this in their shit hit the fan bag so that the next time they're flooded or without power or there's a problem, they can get a hold of somebody. And in the worst examples of gatekeeping that I see people in the ham radio community who, as soon as somebody says, hey, I've got this radio, can you help me out with this? Literally, they are being screamed at, well, you better not transmit unless you have a license. And it doesn't matter that the FCC specifically has a carve out that says in an emergency where there are people in peril or in danger or you need medical assistance, whatever the circumstances are, you have a free right. You will not be prosecuted for using that radio to call for help. But the gatekeepers in the ham radio hobby lose their mind and go batshit crazy. I think it's really easy to say that grognards can be gatekeepers. And I think we've all known those people, whatever the game system. It doesn't matter if it's D&D. It doesn't matter if it's Tunnels and Trolls. It doesn't matter if it's Call of Cthulhu, Battletech, pick your game. We all know grognards. We all know grognards who are the worst of being a grognard and who do gatekeep and who really, more than anything else, want to hold people to their vision of a hobby. And that's wrong. Like, first of all, that's wrong. But we have to also agree that we cannot let a manufacturer or somebody who works for a game manufacturer explicitly say, I don't want these people, or their feedback is invalid. a lot of the people that they're saying are grognards and I don't want their feedback are people who've been buying their products as fast as they've been coming out in
Oh,
fifth
yeah.
edition. These are people who do genuinely have some valid opinions, but that are not politically bent. There is an element to this, right? And I think one of the things I'll this is as close to the third rail of political as I'll get. This last election saw some pushback on some things. And you can say that it was a sweeping amount of pushback, you could say it was a mild amount of pushback, you can dance around whatever you want. But when you have a majority, however slight it is, when you have a majority that wants a different direction, you get a different direction. And so WotC WotC has spent the last couple of years putting out a number of products with a number of things in it that some people have found objectionable, some people have questioned, and there's been people raising their hands saying, "Well, why is this a thing?" And shouting down people is not the way to answer concerns or questions. Pride comes before the fall. Pride always comes before the fall. And so we're going to talk about what Jason Tondro has said. We're going to talk about how this has all sort of come to a head. But we wanted to start tonight and say, first of all, this isn't a political, like, you're not going to see us wearing any color hats. You're not going to see us waving flags. You're not going to see us making a lot of the sort of things that have been slung around Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky and Threads and I don't know. God help me. Are there any people still on MySpace? I don't know. But wherever it is that you've seen the dirt going back and forth, let's try to do this in a rational fashion. We'll try to address some of this and we'll try to talk to this. But more than anything else, let's keep the temperature low key tonight. We don't need rants. What we need are valid questions, some valid answers, some thinking about this, and not a knee-jerk response, because the knee-jerk response is what Elon Musk did the other day. Is there a hint of truth in some of what he's saying? Well, there might be, but more than anything else, that message got lost in the vitriol.
Right.
And it gave people who want to defend what Jason Tondro said all sorts of ammo to say, well, look at Musk and look at how awful and so on and so forth. But there were questions that were there long before Elon Musk got involved. So let's go from here. And by the way, after we're done talking about all this mess, we do have our Christmas ideas. We're going to get into that. And I even wore my special Mela Kalikimaka shirt, so we'll do this right.
All right, number one. I'm not going to sing. I'm going to bring up the image, by the way. The image.
Yeah, it's a doozy. It is a doozy.
So just to set this up, somebody and I purposely removed their name because I don't want somebody getting pushed back because they asked a question. Out of curiosity, did you or your team foresee any blowback to your comments potentially? That is, attention from Musk, as Jim said, was as unpredictable as it was ludicrous. But was there any sense in advance that this could rub some portion of the fandom the wrong way? Though still be worth doing. By the way, that's how you ask those questions because you're like that because you're afraid you're going to offend the person that you're asking it. So you're putting all these qualifications on it. And Jason then goes on and has an answer that it's a doubling down. That's how I'll put it, but I'll read it out and then we'll discuss it. Early in the book's development, the marketing team asked me what sort of critiques we should expect and prepare for. And I and the editors agreed the problem was going to be from progressives and people from underrepresented groups who justly took offense at the language of OD&D. I didn't write the preface until late, and I wrote it to address these concerns. It never occurred to me I'd rouse the ire of the grognards. Now, that could be a good movie. Ire of the grognards. It's obvious now that I look back on it, but I just don't take those critiques seriously even now. I consider those people not worth listening to, so I didn't anticipate their outrage.
And sorry,
Doesn't this? I was going to say this is, this is a pattern, right? This started in late 2022, continued to 2023, and has continued to roll 2024 during the 50th anniversary. This is just basically a pattern we're seeing, and the pattern is, we know what's best, and we're going to follow this path. Now, we don't care whether you like the path or not. This is the path we decided to go on. Or at least this is the path that our Microsoft and Amazon employees that now run the company have decided to go on. And this is just what we're going to do now. And I just think it follows a pattern of being incredibly tone deaf and incredibly out of touch with the fandom. And I know a lot of people would sit there and say, well, look, grognards are not their main fans anymore. And this is true. People who probably were gaming in the 70s or 80s are probably not their fandom anymore. That doesn't mean they don't buy 5e, and that doesn't mean they don't play D&D anymore. That doesn't mean they don't buy tchotchkes, and that absolutely doesn't mean that they're not customers that are going to buy the 50th anniversary book, which is a beautiful, well put together book that should have come out without any controversy. It's supposedly a history book that should have come out with researched by the incredible John Peterson, and it should have been that and that only. There should have this kind of thing should not have been attached to it, but it just follows a long pattern of tone deaf. We know what's best. We're going to get rid of the OGL. We're going to send Pinkertons to your house to grab magic cards. On and on. Just name your scandal of the last year and a half, 2 years. And it also, to me, shows that they're not learning anything. Damn thing. I don't know what to say anymore.
Mike's speechless. Holy crap!
It's just at a certain point you figure they get the message, right? That look, before you say something, run it up the flagpole.
But I think the problem is that everybody was in alignment. And This goes back to my talking about bubbles, right? WotC, Wizards of the Coast decided what they wanted, and that's how they're going to roll. And truthfully, the way you get this to change is somebody gets on Hasbro's earnings call and says, why is it that the people currently responsible for Dungeons and Dragons are trying to alienate a part of the product buying community that has disposable income? Can you answer that? Because that's how you get this to change. You're not going to get it to change any other way. We have rehashed this over and over and over again. And I think you're absolutely right, Mike. This is tone deaf. This is not reading the room. These are people who are surprised. And I realize that there is a tilt in game design in a direction, and I applaud inclusivity. I applaud having a big gaming table and having everybody play together and opening up as wide as possible. But that doesn't necessarily, the cost for that does not necessarily mean that you wholeheartedly dismiss an entire segment of the game playing population as people not worth listening to. Okay, sure. I mean, really and truly, that's if this is gatekeeping of who we want in Dungeons and Dragons and who we don't want in Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, I don't know how they could spell it out any more clearly. I mean, it's very black and white. I consider those people not worth listening to. So I didn't anticipate their outrage. Okay. He didn't anticipate their outrage. I've watched game company after game company after game company make mistakes over the last 40 years. And when they make these mistakes, there's always a bit of buyback. There's a we said the quiet part out loud. We said the quiet part out loud. Oh, we didn't mean for it to be explicitly stated in such a clear fashion. And I think that's some of what's going on here. I think the people who are absolutely the most offended are the people that Jason does not think are worth listening to. And they're ticked because they realize he's not only labeled them, but they've looked down and they've seen the button and they've said, oh shit, he's talking about me. And what's fascinating to me, right, is that I'm watching people, I'm watching people who live in the Dragonlance silo and who never bother anybody. And they're just absolutely, like the hottest debate is who had the best covers, Elmore? Oh, I don't know, Caldwell. Oh, Elmore? Back and forth. The Ravenloft people. And I mean, really and truly, these are all about goths. These people are upset. Like, I'm genuinely, I look at all the different gaming communities around Dungeons and Dragons, and about the only people that aren't upset are the 6 guys in my Dark Sun group. And I'm just like, okay, so it hasn't really sort of hit them, but sure.
Dark Sun is a safe space.
If you want to be free of all this, Dark Sun is there for you. Our setting kills you dead before you're even done making your character. Am I in Traveler? Because it feels like Traveler. And I think the lack of understanding of their customers is absolutely spot on.
Yeah, that's Don. That's a good point, Don.
Yes, absolutely. What WotC, I'm gonna tell a story. So in 1993, the miniature industry went through a moment of sheer panic and terror where New York State started to ban the use of lead in miniature figures. And they managed to get the bill defeated. It never got voted on. But at the time, everybody's sort of looking at, what do we do? Do we go from lead to something else? Yes, pewter, whatnot. We got to go to a different direction. But one of the smartest things that again, I was involved with this. One of the smartest things Games Workshop decided to do was go out and look and talk to every single retailer we could possibly visit within the space of a week. And I mean, not like, and I'm going to keep making fun of it because it was the worst game store I've ever been into, M. Foner's Games Only Emporium in Pennsylvania. The worst game store I've ever been into. No, we went to places like Time Warp. We went to all the really big RPG stores that we could possibly get to. We flew people to California. We flew people to Florida. We flew a couple of guys out to Chicago, one to Texas. But we went to all the big Games Workshop trade accounts. And we took a look and talked with them about what worked and what didn't work. And we listened, right? And part of that was also listening to customers in the store. So if they said, I can't get, and this is going to date me, 2nd edition 40K, the Imperial Assassin was absolutely monstrous. But the Assassin only came one in a box of 12 blisters. And the first thing retailers said were, you sons of bitches, if you don't give us more Assassins, we're going to drop the line because everybody wants one and we can't do it. And one of the first things we did is we did a special release of nothing but Assassins. We made all the ones they got ordered. There was a store that ordered 250 and we made sure they got 250. But we went out and we listened. And my point to this is Wizards of the Coast needs to hit a hard stop. They need to hit a hard stop. They need to come up with questions that they want answered. They need to come up with a list of painful questions for everybody on the receiving end of the questions and that are painful for everybody on the side listening. And they need to go out and they need to hit the top 300 game stores in the United States and Canada. They need to go to the Sentry Box in Calgary. They need to go to Games Plus in Chicago. They need to go out and they need to visit all of them. And they need to talk to the people who own and sell their products. They need to listen to the customers. Because the fact of the matter is, yes, there's plenty of content for underrepresented groups and communities within role-playing. But so help me God, the cone of silence, and I use that phrase on purpose, they absolutely need to listen, because right now the cone of silence they dwell in is as bad as the cone of silence around Providence, Rhode Island, where Hasbro is like, neener, 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 I don't have to hear you. Neener, 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 I don't have to hear you. Because the fact of the matter is that this only gets worse. It doesn't get better. And I'll explain why. There is a phrase that should absolutely resonate if anybody from WotC is watching this, and that is, you're about to create a whole new crop of, and the term is brand terrorists. Brand terrorists will not stop. And I think that there are people at WotC who think that Grumish, or whatever his name is that Elon replied to, they think he is a brand terrorist. No, your brand terrorist is the guy that walks into a store and decides that's it, and takes a knife and cuts an X over the cover of every single player's handbook and every DM's guide and makes them unsaleable, and that store's inventory is ruined and it goes back. These are the kind of brand terrorists you have. And brand terrorists are 1 out of 10,000, but the damage they'll do, the online vitriol, they will literally horn and chew their way into whatever. They're rats in the corn. And you don't need that. Our industry doesn't.
Why create enemies? Why create enemies?
That's just it. They don't have to. And the notion that they don't care about brick and mortar retail, I'm sorry, but they do currently. It's the bottom line. They do absolutely care about this stuff. And they do want to be more successful, because the problem is they've just come off of 5th edition. 5th edition was a record breaker. 5th edition got them all bonuses. 5th edition got them the notoriety that actually surpassed everything that 3rd edition ever accomplished. And that's an important thing to remember, right? You don't want a career that's punctuated by failure. You want a career that's punctuated by successes. And the way you have successes is you build on successes. But 5th edition set a bar. I mean, we've talked about it before. Mike Merrill's is at Chaosium now. See ya. And I don't understand a willingness to simply tackle a fight you didn't have to have, because that's what they've decided to do. And this notion of, I consider those people not worth listening to. That's a real easy phrase to type.
Oh yeah.
But I guarantee you that if all of the people in our comments are in a room and I walk in and I look around and I say, what do we all think about WotC and D&D? And somebody says, like, I don't remember X or Y from the forward being in anything I ever read. And I owned almost all of TSR's product in the day, and so on and so forth. And if I turn around and look you in the eye and say, I don't consider your opinion worth listening to, I would expect to be punched. I would expect to be mocked. And depending on how I delivered it, and I could say it in a much saltier fashion, I would expect somebody to come at me, because nobody, this is the quiet part said out loud. This is what's at the heart of the people who make the world's largest fantasy role-playing game. They don't want a segment that got them here to be a part of that community anymore. They want to drive it out. They think you're the rats in the corn. And I just don't think so. Go ahead, Mike.
You mentioned Chaosium, and I wanted to give you a good example of this. So a few years ago, there was very serious discussion about the implicit and actually not even implicit, the outright racism in Lovecraft stories. And look, if you've read the letters from Howard to Lovecraft, if you've read anything Lovecraft, absolutely. Was the man racist? Absolutely. That was, even at the time, was pushing the envelope. Chaosium didn't stop publishing their game. They didn't call their fans racist and imply that if you like this game, you must be a racist, because obviously Lovecraft was racist. They met this head on. They said Lovecraft. That there's a famous video of Lovecraft of Sandy Peterson saying, "Was Lovecraft a racist?" Yes, that was the whole video, which was true. He was. But is there a value in Lovecraft's work, and especially is there a value in the game called Cthulhu? Absolutely. But inevitably tied to racism? No. Even though racism is a part of history in the 20s and 30s, work that into your game, you can. But it's not something that has to be an integral part of the game called Cthulhu. And as we've seen in the years since this has been addressed, it hasn't become that much of a distraction. Yes, there's probably some hardcore fans that were upset that, Lovecraft was, basically called out as a racist, but it was true. I mean, there's just no way around it. It's a historical fact. Yet it doesn't affect the way you play the game, or the way I play the game, or the way most people play the game. I thought they dealt with it exactly the way it should be dealt with. Is that we're acknowledging it exists, but we aren't going to focus the game on that. The game is bigger than that, I guess, the way you put it. And I just thought that is kind of that's the blueprint to follow. And it's like WotC looked at that and said, "Yeah, we're not going to. We don't like the way. Chaosium. We're gonna call out our fans as misogynist, racist bigots, if that's okay with you guys."
But here's the other thing, specifically with the anniversary book. Listen, players in their 20s, the new 5e players really don't care that much, for the ones that I've spoken to, about the history of D&D. It's the long-term players and the lapsed players, person that played it back in college, back in high school, back in junior high, stepped away from it when real life came in, and now they're at the bookstore or they're on Amazon, and they see this book and they go, "Oh my God, that brings back such memories." And then you open it up, and in the preface, it talks about how people like you are basically all a bunch of ifs, racist, sexist, misogynist. It's not the way to sell to a large portion of the audience for this product. And I'm wondering why 5 months after release, it's being sold for $50 on Amazon. Price is it's no longer a limited time deal. It just says
that's the price.
Well, and come on, there's a few points in the comments I'm gonna mention. Somebody talked about how WotC essentially farmed out the Transformers and G.I. Joe RPG games. Come on, this is a project that nobody at WotC wanted to write, and it was cheaper to farm it out and let somebody else do it. Chaosium and everybody else loves this. And I don't mean that they love the nastiness and the vitriol, right? But when your competition, when your business competition is own goaling after own goaling after own goaling, you shut the hell up and you stay out of the way and you just let them flounder. This is the sort of stuff that come on, people dream about this. Like, you dream about trying to get your competition to make these kinds of mistakes. You dream about this sort of stuff all the time. I read a really, really, really great piece on professional football players that said, you're on a team and you watch the other team's star quarterback get pulled over for doing 100 miles an hour in a 35 with a topless hooker, an open bottle of Crown Royal, and lines of cocaine on the dashboard. And publicly you say, well, this is terrible. And I hope that's not true. But secretly you're like, we don't have to play that guy on Sunday. And that's amazing.
Unless it's Johnny Manziel.
That's right. And come on, I again say, the people who are obsessed about WotC and D&D is not the D&D that we grew up with. It's not the D&D of all the DM's guides and handbooks and monster manuals I have over my shoulder there. WotC is 5th edition.
Right.
WotC is wholeheartedly 5th edition, or whatever we're calling the new edition, and so on. And just wait. I would say this. I would say that if you're displeased with the way that WotC has gone, you should encourage the people you play with. You should encourage others to find the alternatives, buy the alternatives, and play the alternatives. If you're happy with the way things are going and you're happy with this kind of commentary from the people who make Dungeons and Dragons, if you're okay with that, you're going to keep buying it. This addresses what you like. But if you're not, you need to say to people, you need to say to your friends, you need to say to your family, you know what? Hard stop. Not buying this. I'm not buying this. I'm not going to pick any of this up. And until there's a sea change of some kind, this is only going to get worse. Is it doing what WotC wants, which is you out of their community? Sure. But you know what? Is that the community you want to be a part of? Is that a product line you want to endorse? You know, we talk regularly about any of the amazing games and any of the amazing communities that are out there. Like I literally, behind me, I have no shortage of amazing products. We can talk about Shadow Dark. We can talk about Old School Essentials. We can talk about Sword and Sorcery. We can talk about Dungeon Crawl Classics. We can talk about these until we're blue in the face. Savage Worlds. Sweet Jesus. Mm-hmm. There's no shortage of amazing things out there that you should be playing and should be trying. And sure, okay, so there's somebody who says, oh, but it hurts to see the brand and the creators dragged through the mud. Virtue signaling. Well, let's tear that apart and let's just stop for a second. I think you can do a few things. Number one, I've met Gary and I met Dave. I met both of them one time. I have a Dave story. I have a Gary story. I've told them. And the notion that they're perfect is ludicrous. We'll just say that. It's ludicrous. However, I don't like seeing unnecessary vitriol. We'll put it that way. And truthfully, I don't see and I'm going to ruffle some feathers. The forward that we're talking about, that we talked about last week, was not a specific attack on Arneson. It wasn't a specific attack on Gary. It didn't say these are, male pattern baldness. Nothing like that, right? It was more indirect. I'll say indirect. The game, yeah, I think more importantly, when we were listing the things out of the forward last week that we had problems with, again, if you can give me the citations and you can point out the specific examples, I'm on board. Show me, because I haven't had a time to look it up. I know there were a couple that came up last week, but really and truly, the fact of the matter is that I don't even see them as doing this to make money by showing people that they think correctly. That there's a way. I'm trying to dance around virtue signaling, and I'll come back to that in a second. I don't think that they're writing these things and putting them in the books because they think it's going to make them that much more money. I think they're saying that so that the people those words are aimed at see those words and are validated by them. And virtue signaling, I don't like the term. I'll tell you why. I think in some instances it's accurate. I do. I think there are some people that absolutely wear their virtue like a shiny penny on their coat, and I don't understand that. Because the way I was raised is that if you're virtuous, the last thing you need to do is you need to tell people how virtuous you are. You should not break your arm patting yourself on the back. And if you're one of those people that feels like the only way that your good deeds are going to be recognized is by making sure everybody knows it because you're announcing them, and we'll come back to Saltine later. I really think that's a step backwards, and it's a step in the wrong direction. I think that Jason Tondro absolutely believes that the people he didn't like the people he did not feel had a valid opinion and aren't worth listening to. I think he believes that. That's okay. He can believe that. I believe that you can live in a glass house so thick and so cut off from the rest of the mainstream that what you need to do is you need to go to small game stores. You need to go to game stores in the areas that you wouldn't want to travel to because they're icky and somebody with a differing viewpoint might get all over you. I think that's an important part of this. I think yes, there's a throw the baby out with the bathwater about all those early first edition and second edition players and so on. I think there probably is, but that's myopic. I think that's simply myopic. I was told this week that I talked like Fraser Crane last week, so I'm going to lean into that a little bit. I do think it's myopic. I think it's absolutely myopic, and again, I've no time for virtue signaling. If you're a decent person, be a decent person. But you don't have to be but if the more you have to tell people how decent a person you are and how wonderful a person you are, the less wonderful and decent you are.
Right.
And that should be a guiding principle for all of us. But that does bring me to Satine Phoenix. And so somebody mentioned that this is a good dovetail into this, right? Because one of the things that we've seen over the last decade is we've seen these influencers who come up and are all this and all that and blah, 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 blah. And we've talked at length about the rise and fall of Satine Phoenix. We did a few weeks ago. But somebody pointed out to me this week that she's been traveling in Bali.
Ooh.
And she's been enjoying a life in Bali. And this is part of Satine's journey. I don't know if it's self-discovery. I don't know if it's healing. I don't follow her. I don't care.
No, she's not suffering from money problems then.
Well, I think we have a few things to say about Satine. Number one, when are you going to fulfill your Kickstarter? Because whenever I hear Satine's name, that's the first thing I think of is all the people that backed this Kickstarter. When's that going to ship? And as far as Satine Phoenix goes, every time she posts, that's what people should be putting in the comments. When are you shipping my Kickstarter? When are you shipping my Kickstarter? Are you shipping my Kickstarter because you owe me my goods for my Kickstarter? Because every time those posts go up and she's enjoying her journey in Bali or wherever, that's money that could be spent fulfilling a Kickstarter. And truthfully, that's what needs to happen. She needs to fulfill her Kickstarter. I don't care. She's divorced. Somebody asked if she's still married. I believe that they are now divorced. But I don't care about all this other stuff. I don't care what she did in adult entertainment. I don't care what she did as an influencer. I didn't attend her wedding. I have a picture of me at the reception that I treasure. It's a picture of standing between the two of them. And it's pretty good. I'll go get it here in a second. But
It is good.
But my point to all of that is simply that really and truly ignore her except to say, where's my damn Kickstarter? Because she is on a PR tour. She is clawing her way back to be in the good graces of everybody. If you look at her profile, she's now a professor of something, and I don't give a shit. The only thing I care about is, did she ship her fucking Kickstarter yet? And until then, I'm extra salty on Satine, or I'm salty on Saltine. I don't know, whatever. But I don't care. I don't care because there are simple truths. Satine Phoenix hasn't fulfilled that Kickstarter. And everything between her and Jameson is static on the line. WotC, through its creator that has commented on this, they don't want a certain element of the role-playing game hobby participating with their products. And I think you should take it at their word. But I also think that you should drive butts in seats for other games. And I think if you're upset by all this business between the forward and Jason Tondro's comments and so on and so forth, burn it to ash. Don't buy anything. Just don't buy anything. And when you see somebody start to buy something, say, hey, have you tried Call of Cthulhu? Have you tried Shadow Dark? Have you tried Swords and Wizardry? Have you tried fill in your favorite game? Because really and truly, we're too big of a hobby to not just simply let them have by their own choice, ever shrinking little group of people, because eventually that lack of money coming in will send a far more important message than anything else.
I have a couple things, Jim, I wanted to throw in there too. I was the one that said to the thing about, because I don't even know how I came across Satine's Bali excursion, but it made me physically ill, because anything she does now makes me physically ill. But I just want to bring forward a couple things. When you were talking about earlier about, is this what WotC wanted? All I could think about, I wrote on my sheet. I'm getting better at taking notes when you talk, Jim. That way I won't interrupt you. So I take notes. And what I wrote here is this what they wanted for D&D's 50th anniversary? Think about all the things they could be talking about, all the things they could be doing. And instead, the 50th anniversary, the capstone of the 50th anniversary is going to be them saying that they're the creator of the game, the creators of the game, people that were born in the 30s are racist, misogynist, bigoted pieces of crap. That's what they wanted for the 50th anniversary, really? That they wanted to go down that road for the 50th anniversary. They wanted to integrate their own. Just goes back to the whole tone deafness of this company. That is not what you want to be focused on your 50th anniversary. That's ludicrous. And I also want to bring up, if you want to look at a company that, once again, that does it right, I went to the Call Cthulhu, the Chasm site, because I think I'd read this before and I'd forgotten it. This is how you deal with this sort of thing. And by the way, let me make this very clear. I adhere to the saying that basically people that were born in the 30s, that's a different generation. My father was born in the 30s. A lot of our fathers were born in the 30s. It's a different time. And these are men that lived in a different time and acted different ways. And some of those ways aren't accepted the way we do things now. And that's just, but you can't turn back the clock, right? I mean, that's just the way it was. And, there's some things, my dad was born in 1939. I believe Gary was born in 35. It's just part of your generation, how you're brought up. So I don't want to compare. And once again, I'll go back to Lovecraft. I'm not comparing him to Gary. Lovecraft was an unrepentant racist and every anti-Semite, misogynist. You could just go with it. So on their site, they bring this up. So the question is, was Lovecraft terrible racist? I said yes, he was, and they bring up several examples of why he was. And so there was a question: how can we esteem or promote the works of such a terrible person? And I thought their answer was absolutely on point. And this is something when people try to cancel, and once again, one of those terms I hate, canceling. People try to cancel things like this. I don't think they understand the process, because here's what Chaosium said. It's true that Lovecraft wrote some offensively racist things and held some very regrettably racist views. It's also true that his opinions changed over the course of his life, and the ugly things he said in his youth were somewhat mellowed by age and experience. But he's been dead a long time, and there's nothing we can do to change him. We can only recognize his flaws and enjoy those parts of his work that do appeal to us. Imagination, worlds of ancient mystery. Chasm then says, we do not subscribe to political or sociological views, and we do not support them or promote them in any way. That's how you answer the question and deal with it. If you're that opposed, you just say, look, we don't support it, but this is what happened, and we believe there's still some worth in what he wrote, which Lovecraft was one of the most influential horror writers of all time, definitely the 20th century, but of all time, yes, despite his extreme views. Do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. We acknowledge that up front. Say, by the way, up front, here's what we have. This is what this person is. To a lesser extent, and far, far lesser extent, we have to afford Gary Gygax the same courtesy. And I don't think that's too difficult to say that a man born in 1935 is going to have some rough edges. Because, like I said, my dad was born in 39. I know your father's probably along the same lines. They're going to have some rough edges. You face that up front. You say, look, this is the deal. and you move on from there. And you say not everything that a father that was born in 1939 says is immediately rendered, unusable because they were born in 1939. You just have to parse that knowledge. And I like I said, I think Chaosium dealt with that perfectly. They said, look, this is a guy that we're not emulating, we're not promoting, we're not, but we believe that what he wrote has some worth and it has value. And I think we could do the same thing. I think that would have been a much better way for WotC to approach this rather than the way they did, which was basically groveling apology, also with equal amounts of derision and finger pointing, and this is just we're just ashamed of this. We're absolutely just so ashamed of this, but we're gonna somehow forge ahead.
And let's recognize a few things, because interestingly enough, I actually had this conversation at a half-price bookstore with two of the booksellers a couple of weeks ago, and so role playing. When the role-playing game industry figured out that Call of Cthulhu is in public domain, that all of H.P. Lovecraft's creations were in public domain, I mean, the gates opened and the tidal wave commenced immediately. And a lot of the people screaming, and I do mean screaming about how racist Lovecraft is, are the people whose livelihood depends on they're selling all this stuff that they don't have to pay a licensing fee or a royalty fee, but by God, they can milk the Cthulhu beast all the way home. And I literally overheard two booksellers talking about Lovecraft because they saw that I had a collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories. I found the trade paperback of from Del Rey with the great Michael Whalen cover. And I bought a copy for my kid. And they saw it and they were like, oh, Lovecraft. Oh, Lovecraft. And I said, oh, don't get me wrong. I said, absolutely, racist son of a bitch. However, absolutely mind-altering horror, and that's what's really highlighted in this collection. And they're like, oh, and I said, and the fact of the matter is that all the people selling everything Cthulhu, and one of the girls was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, they're not paying any royalties on that. And they'll be the first ones to stand up with you and raise your hand and say, oh, racist shitbag. But that's not going to stop them from selling you Cthulhu Tentacle Fingers or Stuffed Cthulhu or a Cthulhu matching game or whatever. And they're like, oh, yeah. And I said, I'm buying this copy of the paperback used, right? And even then, Del Rey didn't pay any money to reprint those rights. They didn't pay Arkham House. They didn't pay anybody else. And the stories in that collection are not overly loaded with racist references. One of the things that really has come to paint Lovecraft the way he has over the last couple of decades really began in the 60s when Arkham House published the Selected Letters, volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I think they were edited by S.T. Joshi in the 80s, or he did a revision. But that's where you got to know Lovecraft from correspondence that wasn't public. It was private correspondence that people gathered, published after his death. And you're like, wow, wrote some amazing stuff privately, racist shitbag. And that's how we have to treat all of this stuff, right? You have to understand that there's like M.A.R. Barker. My God, M.A.R. Barker, right? If there's somebody where in the last 5 years, I've watched his entire reputation turn around. Tekkamel is not my bag. The words hurt me when I try to say them. But there are people who genuinely love Tekkamel who've had a lot of heartache and a lot of indigestion over the last few years because they discovered that he wrote things they wish he hadn't wrote for communities that he wished he hadn't wrote them for.
But Jim, it goes even further in that there were, I'm not going to call them gatekeepers, but there were people who had knowledge that kept that knowledge hidden.
Bingo. Yes. And so my last note on all this WotC stuff, right? I encourage you when whatever you do, if you're going to introduce people to role-playing games, please remember my golden rule number 1, which is let the Wookiee win. Nobody wants to play a game they got their ass handed to them the first time. It doesn't matter if it's Clue. It doesn't matter if it's Monopoly. It doesn't matter if it's Connect 4. And it doesn't matter if it's role-playing games. If you're going to introduce somebody to a game, do whatever you have to do to make sure they win the game the first time so that they will want to play it again in the future. And then you can make them go bankrupt with Park Place. But if you're going to introduce people to role-playing, rules don't matter. And I'm telling you that right now. The rules don't matter. What they need to walk away from the table is they need to walk away feeling like they were a part of creating a myth and legend and introduce them to the very concept of collaborative storytelling. The monster needs to die. They need to get the treasure, but the rules don't matter. Make them roll dice so that it gives them something to look at and be like, what is this? It has 20 sides. This is so cool. And let them roll the dice and screw it. Let them have a good time. But don't overlay the joy of role playing with the strict rules following, rules lawyer that people want to turn into in a demo game. No, it doesn't matter. I implore you, if you want to teach people, if you want to share role playing, make sure they have a good time the first time they're at the table and walk away, right? And keep them hungry for more, right? I killed a monster. I got the treasure. This was amazing. You know, the dungeon in the back of the DM's guide, that little tiny dungeon in the DM's guide is perfect for an hour and a half when you're sitting around and you've got a couple of kids that are bored out of your mind. All right, kids, here you go. Here's some funny dice. Grab those 2 6-sideds out of the Monopoly and let's go. We're going to play a game. What's the game about? All right, well, I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm going to make a stick figure. And this is tear it out, fold it, and it stands up. That's your character. And here's another one. That's your character. And sketch, sketch, sketch. Here's a big honking dragon. We're going to kill the dragon. That's awesome. Go nuts. Have that good time. But
Jim, come on. No, Jim, come on. The kids would much rather argue about the fact that Gary Gygax may have said that, you know, women aren't as strong as men 50 years ago. What are you talking about? Do you not understand how this works, Jim? Come on. That's what the kids want to do. The kids would rather just delve into that deeply delve into that.
No, I just think, right, at one point over the weekend where this was hitting full steam and I was like, oh, this isn't going to go away quickly. I just muted it. I just muted the word. And then that way I didn't have to see it. And I don't do social media for that, right? I look to see how your kids are doing, and I look to see if you know you're happy and you're well fit and mentally in a good space, and the rest of this is just garbage. And it wastes our time because there's other things we could talk about, like our Christmas list items.
Yes, and this is what people should be talking about, and it's just sad this gets hijacked. And like I said, this is not. I can't believe this is how WotC wanted to spend their 50th anniversary, but they've chosen the battlefield. They've made their stand. This is how we want to spend. But you know what? This is not how we want to spend the 50th anniversary. Be Jim and Eric. We don't want to spend the 50th anniversary talking about idiots who don't know what they're doing. We would rather spend it celebrating our hobby. So
we threatened last week to bring a list of items for the Black Friday weekend so that you could get something for people in your life that are gamers or non-gamers. And I'm coming out swinging this week with a list of some great things. And the first thing that I want to share, there's a story behind this, right? So I can't remember which Gen Con was it. Was it Gen Con number 9, number 10? Anyway, Gen Con had its roots at the Lake Geneva Agricultural Hall. And then one year they decided, I'm going to look it up. They decided they wanted to have it somewhere larger than the Agricultural Hall. And lo and behold, they booked it for the Playboy Resort.
Oh, 1976?
77.
Right.
1977. So if you'll get the pop-out window out of the way.
Damn you.
Playboy has on their store right now the Lake Geneva Resort Tennis Club sweatshirt. They're available in 2 colors. They're available in blue and they're available in white. These things do not. They're not a regular stock item. So it's the Playboy Lake Geneva Resort, the Resort and Country Club. I'm sorry, the Playboy Resort and Country Club at Lake Geneva. Now, here's what you need to know. This sweatshirt was actually what they sold at the Lake Geneva Resort.
That's too good to be true.
And lo and behold, Playboy brought this out last year about this time. They sold it for a limited amount of time, and then they quit selling it. And so I got one, and I wore it to Gary Con, and people were like, oh, my God. But the best line, the best interaction all weekend was Alan Hammock and his wife. His wife comes up to me and goes, I had one of those. Where did you get that? Is that vintage? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Right? So she loses her mind, and Alan's just like, I had forgotten that. And so I said, well, I'll get you one. And they took them off the website. They have been off the website since January of this year, and they just brought them back today. They're on sale. It's $36. They run a little snug I'm a tall guy with long arms, so I got a double X, but they're $36. If you're going to go to Gary Con, or you want to know what it was like to be at Gary Con at the Playboy Resort, and you want to just lean into this is a no-brainer. They're having a huge sale right now. Really and truly, I can't recommend this enough. It's a side associated piece of history for RPG gaming and convention attire and so on. But this is too good not to lead with right out of the start.
I love it, Jim. I want one.
And truthfully, don't wait. If you think you want one, don't dick around. You better order one sooner than later, because when they're gone, they're going to take them off the website, and you're hooped, and they may never bring them back.
So I followed up on something I said last week, because I said that one of the things I love is stainless steel drinking cups. Okay. So Eric, I posted a link there, Amazon.com. You have your choice of so many Dungeons and Dragons themed stainless steel cups, and here's the best point. Look at the price point there. $25, with some Black Friday deals going as low as $6. Look, I guarantee, even if the one you love that plays D&D already has a cup, they're never going to turn down another stainless steel Dungeons & Dragons cups, especially if you could get it for $25 or less. That's territory right there, folks.
That right there. That's excellent.
Oh, and look, I never have enough. I use stainless steel. I probably have 5 at home that I reuse and just rotate. I would love one of these, but I probably have to buy myself one, but I would love one of these, because I just think they look cool. The designs are really, really eye-catching, eye-popping. And like I said, you can't beat the price. I'm always looking for gifts that are in that 25, under $50 range, because I'm cheap. I'm a cheap son of a bitch. And so, that's I may get one of these for my whole gaming group. I haven't decided yet. I may get everybody different ones. So that's one of my suggestions right there. Nice and cheap, and I guarantee they probably don't have one. And if they do have one, just look at the design, buy another one. You could always use more than one drinking cup, especially for the stainless steel ones.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I have a Gary Con stainless steel mug that was made by a woman who was a vendor for the first decade or so at Gary Con, and who passed away. And it's one of my favorite things. I hardly ever use it because I don't want it to wear out, and I always remember Pam whenever I do use it. These things rapidly become a part of who you are. My son has one of these Yeti, one of the tall Yeti bottles, and it's absolutely festooned in 2 or 3 layers of inappropriate stickers. And he takes it with him everywhere, and the easily offended are offended by it, and they won't talk to him because of it, and he doesn't give a shit. He puts it on the back of the hockey net, and it's got a dent in it from where it took a puck at like 80, 90 miles an hour. He doesn't care. These things become a part of your life, and they become magical talismans. There's an African tribe it's the Eskimo. It's an Inuit tribe. It's an Inuit. An Inuit lore says that an item, the further it travels, the more magical power it has. And so when you have something like this and you lug it around everywhere and you go everywhere, they become a part of your character. They become a part of your identity, and they're just spectacular.
I have a stainless steel cup that my daughter made for me many years ago that has a logo. I believe it's from the probably 5 or 6 years ago. It's a North Texas logo. And I bring it to every North Texas, and I have people ask about that all the time. And I guarantee you my daughter can make a fortune if she ever wanted to start making them again. But she just made me one. I have the one. And like, can your daughter make one of those for me? I'm like, no, she doesn't have the equipment anymore. She had a business online for a while, which she made stainless steel cups and put emblems and designs on them. But that is me now. I bring that to every North Texas, and everybody asks me about it. And I love the fact that everybody asked me about it. I wish I could sell them. I wish I had more. So this is kind of the next best thing, the page I linked you to on Amazon. And as you notice, there's all different varieties, so many different varieties of D&D type tumblers, cups, coffee mugs. I mean, you can't go wrong. Honestly. And look, we all know somebody that drinks coffee. Has anybody ever drank coffee, complained that you got them a new coffee mug? No, they want more coffee mugs. They love more coffee. Anything like this, people love. So you can't go wrong. And look, and the usual tchotchkes, you obviously have your dice towers, you've got your dice sets, then there's every kind of dice set. Now you've got metal, you've got, mastodon bone, you've got, you've got, plastic space shuttle dice. I mean, I don't know, whatever. This is something that it doesn't occur to people to buy, at least in my experience. They always towers. They think of things like that. They won't necessarily think of a cup or goblet or I have a goblet. I love my goblet. We're not at home right now. So for those of you that watch the show, when I'm back at home, I have the huge goblet behind me. I love that goblet too. That was actually sold at GameStop a couple years ago, and I love that thing. I still drink out of that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So I have another one. I'm sorry, Eric. Do you have one?
Nope.
Okay. So I've got another one. I put the link in our chat. So Kenan James is the artist we all end up talking about whenever we see his stuff, and he's decided that for Black Friday he's having a sale. So Eric, if you can scroll down a little bit, all of these black and white illustrations are for things that Kenan has done the work for. There's a shirt that says Bree Yark. There's a shirt that says Not Today Cthulhu. Keep scrolling. There's literally the fire giant. Can you go back up and click on the fire giant?
I love these.
Right there to the left. Look at the fire giant. Nope, to your left.
Hold on.
Down. There we go. Folks, I want you to look at this fire giant. I kid you not, there was a guy at North Texas that had this T-shirt on the other day, this past year, and it literally stopped me cold in my tracks because it gave me PTSD for G3. But Kenan has a sale going on right now. So he's got 15% off. You can select the quality of the shirt, and trust me, it's TeePublic, so get the higher quality shirts because their cheapo shirts are bullshit. But if you can go back to, there's just a shirt here for everybody. I ordered one for my son, ordered one for myself. There's a great lich. There's just so much to unpack here. All the illustrations are amazing. Go to Waffles. Go to the one on the left that says Waffles. I don't think that my son really knew.
It's so amazing. I saw it. He was at LongCon. He had a booth at LongCon, and I got him to do a full page or sketch for me of an ebook. The guy is just an absolutely amazing artist.
An amazing talent. And the problem we always bitch about is that Earl Otis and all these other great artists didn't have T-shirts at the time. Here's your chance to actually get a T-shirt and wear it and support an artist. And please, 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 whatever you do, take a look at his line of shirts. Find something for you. Find something for your family. But support a great artist. Support a talented artist, and run with it. Because I just had so much fun laughing at these shirts and looking at them. He's got the T-shirt that's the 100 Monster poster that he did.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I didn't know I needed a T-shirt that said Bree Yark, but I did.
You did. You did.
This is just perfect. This is perfection.
Great stuff for Kenan.
Yeah, and come on, it's discounted for Black Friday weekend. You'll regret not getting it, and T Fury's committed to making sure you get this stuff in time for the holidays. Yes, there's pig-faced orcs. I mean, this is just great with the dragon.
He's a great guy too. I got to talk to him a little bit at LongCon, and he'll be back in North Texas next year also. Just a great guy. He really is. If you're supporting him, you're supporting old school gaming. By the way, he is going to have they're having a convention down in Austin this year. I can't remember the name. I'm sorry. I'll pimp it as the year goes on, 2025. But I'm definitely going to drive down to Austin and go to it because it's put on by Keenan and his partner. I'm sorry. I'm blanking on names tonight. I'm sorry, but I'll have more information next year.
Great stuff. Absolutely great stuff.
So I posted something there too. If you would like to buy a giant D&D table book, but you don't want to have to deal with the bullshit of Tondro, and you want something that's kick-ass, this is an amazing book.
Yeah.
Now look, here's the coolest part. It is on sale for half off right now at Amazon.
More than half. Oh, yeah.
$26.
Half
List
off
price
the
$50.
price.
It is an amazing book. If you like Art of D&D, and who does not like the Art of D&D? We all like it. This is just an absolutely amazing book with large, giant, touched up, whatever, however they do it, pictures of some of the greatest images in D&D history. It's an absolutely beautiful book, and I have a copy that I bring to conventions and have the artist sign. So I've got mine signed by Easley, Darlene, D. So I try to get as many signatures as I can on it. It's great. Now it's a giant book, so carrying it around is not that easy to cons, but it is a great item to get signed by a different artist at cons. It's an amazing book, absolutely amazing book. And the best part, no politics or weird ass introduction bullshit involved in this one.
Yes, this was pre-forwards.
Pages, over 400 pages of art. It's just great. It's a great book, and you can't beat that price for a giant table-sized hardback. 20.
Yeah, it's a coffee table book. It's an amazing coffee table.
It is a good book.
It is really good.
If you haven't noticed my theme tonight, my theme is $26 or less, or right around.
Oh no, I've lost my damn mind on some of this. I'm trying to
find some $25 stuff because I'm just trying to find stuff that's cheap enough that you're not going to break the bank. We all know, look, it's tough times financially right now. Maybe you don't have a lot, but these are some great markdowns. Some of the stuff that I'm linking to today. So.
Okay, so every year, Goodman Games blows out everything. They have a monstrous 40% off sale, and I linked to the store. But if you type rule book in the search, you can get the DCC rule book either in hardcover or softcover for the lowest price you'll ever pay on this anywhere. So there's the DCC to the lower left. So your left. Your other left. There you go.
Yeah.
So the rule book is like $30. Go ahead and click on that, Eric.
It's going slow.
Oh, there. See, it's being slammed right now.
Not my fault.
If you haven't played DCC, if you've seen DCC, hashtag not a cult, this is a chance to dive in. And really and truly at 40% off, you're kidding yourself if you think that this is what the communities should be like. This is what WotC's community wishes it was like. This is a great game. There's an unbelievable line of modules. It's a home run. I could list a dozen modules to pick up along with this, but at 40% off with their monster sale going on right now, if you're wanting an alternative, and I've got another one queued up to talk about it as well, but DCC is in stock. They can ship it to your door. If you want to give somebody a game where really and truly you want to know what it was like to be a hero in the late 70s in a role-playing game, this is pretty close to it. And I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of DCC. I think if you approach DCC as a campaign, Bob, I think you're making a mistake. I think you just have to approach each one as a one-off and put together a motley assortment of characters and let them run and let them have fun. But
episodic gaming is like
episodic gaming. I like that. Yes, but more than anything else, I think it's just not fair this year, particularly with all the shenanigans of the past week. if you want alternatives, here's a great alternative, and here's one where the community couldn't be more welcoming, couldn't be more decent. So there's another one of my recommendations. What have you got, Mike?
I lost my page here. Either
Okay.
Vamp or Eric, do you have anything you want to?
I got more. So let me put another link here.
All
Let me put another link here. So if I'm gonna make recommendations, I'll mention DCC, which has over a decade of building a community, and then we've talked about this ad nauseum. Shadow Flippin' Dark. Mm-hmm. Shadow Dark is the other RPG that I would recommend this holidays. Now, there's a problem. So let's talk about this. They're out right now. You can buy the hardcover and the PDF, but the only thing you're going to have right now is the PDF because they aren't expecting the next print run until February. You know what? It's worth the wait. And truthfully, I think there's very few things where I would say tell whoever it's going to be here after Christmas and it'll be amazing. But the folks at Arcane Library are already pulling their hair out about trying to get these in time and trying to get them to go faster, and they're not going to. But if you have somehow lived in a hole this past year and you don't understand what Shadow Dark is and what Shadow Dark has become, this is truly the 21st century. This is the bleeding edge of role-playing games in the 21st century. If DCC was a decade ago, that's what Shadow Dark is today. We've talked ad nauseum. We think Kelsey absolutely has the chops. Mm-hmm. She's the Simone Biles of RPG kickstarted products right now. And I don't say that lightly. I really don't say that lightly. She stuck the landing. She got the 10. Even the flippin' East German judge gave her a 10. Absolutely one of the best games of the last decade, one of the last 20 years. And it has nothing to do with, I don't want you to play this game or I don't want you to play this game. It's all about, here's Shadow Dark. We'd love for you to play this game. And it's just
I'm going to click something here. I looked for this on Amazon, could not find one on Amazon because this is something that I really enjoyed back in the day. I'm a big, like Eric, I'm a big Jeff Grubb fan. So back in the early 90s, there was an Advanced Dungeons & Dragons comic that came out for DC Comics, written by Jeff Grubb, and he also had about 2 years worth of Forgotten Realm comics. Now, if you see Jeff Grubb at a convention, especially if you see him at North Texas next year, ask him the story about what happened to the comics, because at the time, the comics went for about 3 years, were immensely popular, hot takes, and then disappeared. And the reason is our favorite person, Lorraine Williams, who demanded that DC Comics pay a higher licensing fee than they were paying for Batman or Superman, because that was Lorraine Williams. I'm sorry, Lorraine Williams at the time. Anyway, you can buy. They have collected these comics. There was 3 to 4 years of these. Several, couldn't find them on Amazon, but I did find them on eBay. And as you see, they are within a decent price range, anywhere from $15 to $25. There's some that are $50. Ignore those. Those are somebody on eBay trying to make a lot of money. You can find the same ones farther down the list. These are excellent comics. Jeff Grubb did a really great job. They're probably the only Dungeons & Dragons comics that have ever come out that actually have the feeling of Dungeons & Dragons. Why? Because they're written by Jeff Grubb, who is an incredible author. The artwork's great. The Forgotten Realms comics, I believe the artist is oh gosh, Eric, can you help me, or do you remember even? I can't remember.
I'm trying to remember myself.
He's really good. Gosh, I'm looking up his name. Anyway, the Forgotten Realms stuff I think are even better than the Dungeons & Dragons stuff. But this is stuff you probably haven't read unless you were reading comics in the early 90s. And I guarantee if somebody's just become a fan of D&D in the last 20 years or so, they've never seen these. Very good. The storylines were great. The artwork was top-notch. It went exactly by the Dungeons & Dragons rules. There was no, it wasn't like the D&D movie where some of the stuff matched, but other stuff doesn't match. No, these were written by a guy who worked in the Dungeons & Dragons rules, so he used the rules when he wrote these comics. But they're very good. The Advanced Dungeons & Dragons issues, I believe that went for about 3 years, about 30 or 40 issues. That deals with the party based in Waterdeep that has a centaur, a palette. I can't remember, a couple other characters. The Forgotten Realms comics is a mage who has a party of characters, including a samurai and a paladin, and they fly around on this ship that flies through the air, and they right wrongs all across the realms. Both of them both series are excellent, and I believe they're 3 volumes. Both of them are 3 volumes. So look on eBay. You can get these in time for Christmas. Heck, I'm going to probably buy them for myself because I love I have the actual comics. I don't have the collections. I just assume not mess up my comics.
Rags
Morales. Absolute excellent artwork on the Forgotten Realms series. Yes.
Yeah.
Great stuff. That's one of my So like I said, if somebody is into D&D, they probably have not run across these. And if they have not run across the collected editions. They might have 1 or 2 comics sit in the back of the collection, but they don't have the full series. So
alrighty. Moving on to the next one.
Okay. So why don't you put me up on this screen for just a second? I want to show everybody this. So WizKids brought these miniature figures out a couple of years ago. And so right now, if you look, there are these collections of D&D monsters, but the WizKids ones that are sculpted by Kid Robot. These are what you want to look for.
The Kid Robot ones. Oh,
yes, the Kid Robots are amazing. So this was a Tom Hwam illustration in the original Monster Manual. And God bless their hearts, Kid Robot absolutely nailed it. Sorry, I'm trying to show it to you. It's perfect. It's perfect in every way. Okay, you can take me off the screen now. So I wanted to point this out. Now, do I think you want to spend $236 and buy a full case assortment? No, you don't. But Eric, if you click on the second picture down, click on that and then click on the picture itself to enlarge it. This is why we fell in love with these, right? It's got everything. It's got the Rust Monster, the Mimic, the Sahagan. It's perfect. Now, there's a Series 2 that's out of these. They're randomly packed, but the ones you really want are commons. So you've got a great chance of finding one. Unless you've absolutely lost your mind, don't order an entire box of them from Amazon, but you should go to your local store. You should try to find these. They're amazing, and they're perfect stocking stuffers. They're absolutely perfect stocking stuffers. I will say that Bob at Chimera Hobby Shop has always got a good stock of these. Check your local store, but if you can't find them, reach out to Bob at Chimera Hobby Shop in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Bob and Pam, they'll take care of you. If they've got them in stock, they'll ship them. They're really, really, really some of the best stocking stuffers I've ever seen. And so high-hearted recommendation. I don't want these to slip off people's radar. I really wanted you to see this.
Nice.
So there's that one. What else you got, Mike?
I was looking for stuff not made by WotC because I would rather not give them.
I think that's fair.
Any of my, and I ran across this page when I was putting in keywords, and it's intrigued me. I just sent you the link there, Eric. Okay. This is I put in Dungeon Dragons miniatures, and these sets came up, and I've never seen these before, and I was absolutely enchanted with these things. These are within the range I talked about, $50 and less. And they have all kinds of stuff. There's, like you say, the Heroes and Animals, Spellblades, Heroes set, Chaotic Encounter, Spellblade. They just have all kinds of, and they look like they're plastic. You probably have to paint them for them to look better. But man, for $20, you can buy one of these sets that has 20 monsters in it, and it's not made by WotC. Sign me up. I like the sculpts too. I think the sculpts are nice. I look through there. I may get one of the. I thought the dragon one's pretty. They had some, but I just kind of flipped through there and I found some really, really good stuff in there. Stuff that I would.
I don't have enough unpainted miniatures. I need to get some more.
Who will say no to more unpainted miniatures to fill up their their room with. Nobody would ever say no to that. Of course
Oh
not.
my God. Yes.
They'll take. Now the only issue I had was they're Reaper size 28 millimeter. They're not the 25 millimeter. Some are larger, some are 30 millimeter. I don't find that's a problem when it comes to monsters. I don't mind my monsters being 28, 30 millimeter because I like my monsters to be giant and scary. The figures I have a little problem with because they don't really fit. If they're 28 to 30 millimeter, they're a little big, but that's the standard nowadays. All Reaper stuff is all 30 millimeter. I'm sorry, 28
That's
millimeter.
right.
So. Anyway, and the company is named I believe Lithco or Lith. What's it called?
No, it's
Will Aspire. Will Aspire. Yeah,
yeah.
Will Aspire.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's not WotC. It's miniatures. You can buy miniatures, but you're not buying WotC miniatures, which is a win-win. But I like some of the sets here. I saw some of the sets. I was very pleased with some of the sets I looked at here.
Oh, if you got.
You know what? Here's the thing. Here's the thing. These can be the miniatures that you give to your nephew and niece that are 10 or 12 years old, and you don't have to look over your shoulder
Absolutely.
and wonder if you're out hard money.
Yes.
Really and truly.
They're plastic. So, okay, give them this, give them some paint, go ahead and paint it. Who cares if they ruin them? It was $20.
That's right. Give me a break.
Matter. They're not going to ruin them. It's going to be the first thing they ever have.
The perfect age is somewhere around 5th grade. If you put a box of these under the Christmas tree for a 5th grader, you'll be set. Now, somebody mentioned this in the comments, but I had already queued this up. If you didn't get the Lego D&D minifigures sets or minifigures that came out this year, this is a home run. You can pick up a box of 6 from Amazon for $25. If you look around, Target's been blowing them out at half price. You can find these just about everywhere, and really and truly, they're amazing. The Mind Flayer, the Lady of Pain, the Dragon Paladin, the Party Witch, all of this is just great stuff. The Strahd figure's worth the price of admission. There's not a clunker in any of these. And I think 4 of the 12 have alternate heads, so you can swap out the heads. There's a druid, there's a lich, there's an elf. All of this is just a home run. If you don't like Lego, I don't know why you're watching this show. These are they're the best. They really, really are they're just ideal. So again, thinking of stocking stuffers, yes, but Lego is really smart. There are no rares. Lego made these miniatures in equal proportions. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, if you order 2 boxes, you might get 2 boxes of the same 6 figures, but these are amazing. So 6 Lego minifigs for $25 to your door. They're just great. You know, Strahd comes with a rat. The Mind Flayer comes with an intellect devourer. The Tiefling has a small dragon. They're just it's a home run. I could be here for hours talking about these figures. But if you had told me that I would ever own a Lego Lady of Pain, I would never have believed you. But this was just
beyond. Yeah, that was beyond any of our
wildest dreams. Yes. Any of our wildest dreams. So big hat off to Lego. I hope it means they're going to do more at some point, but they're just great. Okay. What else? What do you got, Mike? What else you got?
Another thing I looked at was I have been at some point I got rid of all my D&D novels, all the Weiss, Hickman, Salvatore stuff, and I thought, I'd like to have some of those back, but I don't want the individual paperbacks. I want a nice big collection. Oh, I bet they're too expensive. Guess what, Jim? They're not too expensive.
What, Mike? What?
They're not too expensive. I'm going to link you to one, and I found quite a few. This is just one of the links I have. But I started looking for the Weiss Hickman stuff first because also I thought this is good. Look, the Weiss Hickman stuff for kids. It's not. This is not intellectual fare. Okay, the Dragonlance stuff. It's just good, solid fantasy storytelling.
That's right. It's a quick read.
And so I linked to they have hardcover collections of almost all the Dragonlance books. And they roll in at about $30.
Nice.
And they have the one I think I linked there, Eric, was the Dragonlance Chronicles. It has all the Chronicles books, but I'm pretty sure they have every trilogy and or series of Dragonlance in these hardback books now. But $30 for a hardback collection of all the Chronicles? Yes, please. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hello.
the
This is
paperback
especially
is
good if you
more
have kids that are just getting into it. And look, I'm not saying that Weiss and Hickman are bad writers. They're not maybe to the extent of they're not a Joe Abercrombie or a Steve Erickson or something. But for kids, they're perfect. That's when I read the books. Actually, I was in college when I read the books, and I thought, this would be great if I was like 5 years younger. It would have been perfect. By the time I was 25 or so, I felt like I might have been a little too old for them. But for teenagers or younger, these are perfect.
But little heads up, this is a pre-order, so it doesn't ship until
It's a pre-order. It's going to come out, not going to come out till February. But if you look up, but if you also look there's some of these that are already out. Also, there's other Dragonlance sets. This is the one I like because I thought this looked really nice. And yes, it is a pre-order for February. So that would be the one sucky part of it is say, oh, by the way, I got your book, but you're not going to get it till February. So,
good gifts are worth the wait. Good gifts are worth.
I'm probably going to buy this. It has Dragons of Autumn Twilight, Dragons of Winter Night, and Dragons of Spring Dawning. I haven't reread those in probably 40 years. I want to get this just so I can reread them. So
that's great. That's just great. The original trilogy has been on my reread pile for about a month or so, and I think as we get into the winter months, I'm gonna spend a weekend reading those first 3 books, and yeah.
But they have these aren't the only ones. I just have there. If you look up Salvatore, put in Dungeon Dragons novels, Salvatore, you'll find all the Driss books, same concept. Who are some other? There were some other really Douglas Niles had some nice trilogies there. They're all being reprinted now in this format. I think it's a great format for these.
So I have another recommendation here. These are from Beadle and Grimm's, and if you don't know who Beadle and Grimm's are, this is the store of licensed D&D products that really tries to make something amazing for each to come out with all the books and so on. But they've done dice sets, and it wouldn't be Christmas, it wouldn't be the holidays without having some kind of recommendation of some kind of dice. And I saw these today. So if you click on some of the pictures, actually click on the lower left picture, or just start clicking through the arrows. There we go. So they've come up with 6 sets. One for Expedition of the Barrier Peaks, one for Ravenloft, Temple of Elemental Evil, Tomb of Horrors, Vecna Lives, White Plume Mountain, and they're dice sets, but they come with a challenge coin and some cards or a little folder. But I saw these today, and wow, they're nice. I can't believe I'm going to say that it's worth $40. They're on sale this weekend, but at first I saw them and I thought they were miniature versions of the modules. I was thankfully wrong, but the dice are pretty cool. The Ravenloft dice look like blood. The Tomb of Horrors dice are pretty cool. But the challenge coins, like the coins have Strahd, they have the elements for Temple of Elemental Evil. For S3, Expedition of the Barrier Peaks, they've got a robot. There you can see the magic mouth. You've got Vecna's hand. This is all great stuff. I'm not that dice guy. I'm not a dice collector. But if you have somebody who's an old schooler, if you have somebody who loves dice, they're on sale for 10% off this weekend. Here you go. There's S2. This is just, again, trying to find something that's gaming adjacent for people, and for that gamer in your life. You know who the dice people are. I could never justify spending $40 on a set of dice, but I have to say I was pretty sorely tempted today when I saw them in my local store. And when I saw them, I was like, okay, I wasn't going to recommend any dice. I'm going to go ahead and recommend these dice. So take a look at the website, poke around. The challenge coin, I'm not a challenge coin guy. I have a few. I've been given a few, but I'm not out there knocking doors down to get more. But they're pretty swanky. All right, what else you got, Mike?
So I have one of my favorite. So I lucked out when my grandson was younger, and I walked into a Goodwill store, and found a copy of the Dungeon board game for $5. Best $5 I ever
Wow.
spent in my life. We probably played it easily over 100 times. Luckily, it had all the pieces and everything. I looked and tried, and I found there is a new set. There is a new Dungeon board game set. It's great for kids. It's put out by WotC. Unfortunately, you would have to give WotC $25, but it's a great game for kids. And we got my wife to play a few times, but my grandson Jake, whenever he came over, he would pull this game out. This is what he wanted to play, and we
Eric's
probably
got it
played
twice.
it. We probably played it
One from
100
my
times.
house, one from my niece's house.
Nice.
You can play either place.
It's a great game for kids. Like I said, I hate giving WotC even $25, but this is the kind of thing you should support from WotC. Something that is not been tainted by their lunatic aspirations of the last few years. Something that came out, 50 years ago that's still as good as the day it came out. Easy game to learn, tons of fun. There's all kinds of variations. We had all kinds of variations. We had one where you could team up together, which is in the rules, but we said that you could. We like to be cooperative and have fun. We didn't like to rob each other, and so our deal was, look, let's team up and fight monsters, and we would team up. And so it's just a great game for kids. It's fun. It's got lots of cards, lots of boards. Great. It's classic. It's just a fun game. If you have kids, I would highly recommend this game.
Yeah, I have a lot of really, really, really fond memories of Dungeon, and I have this version. I bought it for my son when he was little, and before he was old enough to really sort of dive into role playing and so on. And it's just great.
And look, if you don't want to give WotC $25, there are plenty of used copies out there on eBay. Just go buy one from somebody.
Go to your local store. There's probably a good game store with inventory probably has a copy knocking around.
It's been reprinted like 5 or 6 times now over the last 50 years. It's been printed many, many times. So.
Okay, I wanted to recommend one of the greatest book series of all time. That's the Mad Scientist Club books by Bertrand Brinley. So these originally began as short stories in Boys Life magazine in the 60s. And Brinley was a rocket scientist for NASA. He wrote the short stories. He had written a novel that introduced all the characters, but it wasn't published until after his death. I'm sorry, it had one printing while he was alive, but it sort of came and went pretty quick. But the Mad Scientist Club is about a group of boys. It's set roughly, it's never specifically stated, but roughly in the 60s. And there's sort of hijinks that they get up to around their small town somewhere in the Midwest. If you scroll down just a smidge, Eric, you'll see that they actually have a 3-book special. There's the collection of short stories called the Mad Scientist Club. Then there's a second book called The New Adventures of the Mad Scientist Club. And then there's the novel, The Big Kerplop. And the Big Kerplop is, there's a lake near the town, and an army bomber is flying over one day, and something falls out of it and makes a big kerplop noise. And it, of course, turns out to be an atomic bomb. And the army is trying to figure out where the bomb went. They've got divers all over the lake. And our heroes, the members of the Mad Scientist Club, they come together to figure out what happened to the bomb. They figure out where it is, and they're the heroes. And that's how the Mad Scientist Club came to be. You can get all 3 of these books for $50. If you know anybody, if you know that kid in 5th grade that's interested in science and interested in this kind of stuff, they don't make books like this anymore. These are classics. They're illustrated by Charles Greer, who was a very famous kids illustrator in the 60s and 70s. I can't recommend these books highly enough. I got the first Mad Scientist Club book. I think it was Christmas of 5th grade, and I devoured it. And then I found the second one, and then I hunted forever to try to find the novel. I can't recommend these highly enough. They're some of my most favorite books. My kid devoured them when he was old enough. Really, really, really strong recommendation. If you look, 354 ratings at a 4.8 rating on Amazon.
I'm a huge fan too, Jim. And I read these in elementary school. I loved them. They're still hilarious, by the way. They're very funny. They're very funny. And story where they decide to create a sea monster for the lake to get more publicity for the lake.
Yes.
And just, I mean, that is hilarious.
The sea monster of Strawberry Lake. Yes.
And so, I mean, they're funny, but they're timeless. And that's one thing I think that we lose a lot of, Jim, when we look at these things, is something that's timeless quality, because it's just, like you said, it's kind of this hazy time between the 50s and the 70s when your kids would go out all day and they'd play all day and they come home at night, and you didn't arrest the parents because the kids were, not in the house all day. There was no cell phones. Everybody was riding their bikes. It just has this timeless quality. I can reread these now and I still love them. And I'm a huge fan of the Mad Scientist Club stuff.
And one of the great ones, there's a story about the boys, the boys are well-meaning, right? Like the road to hell is paved with good intention. And so there's a great story. There's a great story where the kids are the boys are trying to help local farmers because there's a bit of a drought. So they start, they're interested in model rockets. So they make model rockets that put potassium nitrate or whatever it is in clouds to try to seed the clouds to get it to rain. And they're successful. And suddenly, like, they go from being the town weirdos to the town heroes until one day this gigantic, big, fat, black cloud is coming over the horizon, and the boys hit it with a couple of rockets, and then the flooding starts.
It won't stop raining.
That's right. After 5 or 6 days of constant rain, like, they're like, well, do you turn the tap on? How do you kids turn this on? It's just great. But the Mad Scientist Club, I would say go ahead and get all 3 books at once.
Absolutely.
It's a great read. So
they were out of print for a long time.
Yeah, they were. So to their credit, his son and daughter, about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was a Disney movie. 25 years ago, they got all of them back in print, and they even published the 4th book that had never been published. So hats off to his kids for getting them back. So, all right, what else you got, Mike?
I have the Trivial Pursuit, D&D Trivial Pursuit game, and this has questions that were written by John Peterson. It is excellent. It's not cheesy. It's not cheap. It's not easy. These are hard questions. As Eric knows well, Joe the Lawyer will pull this game out for some odd reason in the middle of Friday night show and start reading questions off of it. But it's actually really good. It's actually a really good Trivial Pursuit game because the questions they're not gimmies at all. You have to know the D&D game to be able to answer these questions. And I've been meaning to get a copy for myself for a while. I keep putting it off. It's on sale now. It says it's $10 off for Black Friday. So I may end up getting a copy of this. But yeah, I love it. I kind of love it when Joe the Lawyer pulls that set out and starts asking questions because I get to show off my D&D smarts, which is probably the only thing I'm really good at in life at this point is knowing D&D trivia. So no, it's a really good game. Once again, I don't think with this game, I don't think you're putting money directly in WotC's pocket. I think Mattel was this some other. I don't know if this was actually Hasbro that came out with this. I'm not sure who actually licensed this, but
it might be published by Hasbro. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Whoever did well, I think I think they do have the rights to Trivial Pursuit now, don't they? Doesn't Hasbro have the rights?
I think they bought that.
Anyway, good. It's good stuff. It's if you want to play a Trivial Pursuit game that you have a better than 0 chance of winning with your family, because believe me, they will have no clue and you will kick.
They will never play this game again with you. But yes, you will be the king of the day until they quit and walk away in frustration.
Play with other D&D fans. Don't ruin your family relationship by playing this game with them.
So Eric, before you put the next one up, let me just set the stage. Let's say that you've gone to the beach. You've gone to the beach and you've decided to lay out and enjoy sun and frolic, and you're interested in meeting someone special. How can you advertise to get that perfect someone special? I'm here to help you with this other Christmas suggestion.
Not Grindr? No Grindr. Okay.
No Grindr. Okay. But here we go. Yes, it's a special 2-pack of Dungeons and Dragons towels. Yes, You've got a Dragonlance towel of the twins, and you've got Elminster, full Elminster. You've got 2 honking bath towels that you can. I'm sorry, beach towels. You can lay these out, and hopefully you can find that love of your life that you've been looking for. Because yeah, are they from a sketchy company? Probably. Are they legal? Who cares? But you can have Elminster and the twins.
Who cares?
That's right. From Lance Wizard Realms. But what the heck, for $34.99, how can you go wrong? Can you go wrong? You can't really go wrong. So, yes, or if you want to decorate your cubicle at work, again, here we have the Northwest Dungeons & Dragons Beach Towel 2-pack set. Dragonlance and the Realms.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't think I could do better than that. I got one more great recommendation. So
go for it. I'm looking for my last one here. And I
all right, here's my last one. So if we're going to talk about books that were a big influence, I talked about Mad Scientist Club. So I don't know who all in the audience still remembers Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators.
Oh, yeah, I love that series. Yes.
It was a long-running series that started in the 60s. Then after Hitchcock died, they dropped Alfred Hitchcock and they made up somebody else. But the daughter of the original creator, Robert Arthur, has brought the first 10 books back into print. And so you can now order the first 10 books for the Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators series and get them in time for Christmas and throw these at somebody who has not had a chance to I mean, this is what actually led to Scooby-Doo, because it was mystery without any harm. It was, I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. This is what came before Scooby-Doo. And now this is my favorite part of all of this. These books have been translated around the world, but they were a big hit in the US, and they finally sort of faded out around the late 70s. In Germany, it never stopped. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to be, I've got to pull this picture up and have Eric share it. So if you've ever wondered what it would be like to be able to step through a portal into an alternate reality, lo and behold, in Germany, there's still such a big deal. I got this picture. I'm going to, Eric, I'll send the picture to you in our Facebook chat. It's probably the easiest way to get it to you. So lo and behold, a guy posted a picture the other day, and I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But he wandered into the German equivalent of Barnes and Noble, and he found an entire in-cap display that is the Three Investigators in German. In Germany, they're one of the most well-known series of children's books, i.e. almost as big as Harry Potter.
Wow.
And how big are they? There's a Playmobil set of figures of the Three Investigators. I can't make this shit up. And so The Secret of Terror Castle is the first one of the books. They're a great fun read. Again, 5th grade is about the sweet spot for these, but I was reading them all through 6th and 7th grade.
Jim, they're very smartly written. They're not written down. They're not written for kids.
No, not at all.
For tiny kids. They say they're adult, but they're not children's children's books. They're more like mid books. They're very well written.
So Eric, if you can zoom in on that picture in the middle shelf on the left, and you can see it's the three detectives, the 3 question marks, but there's the Playmobil set over on the left, right there. There's the 3. So there's Bob Crenshaw and Jupiter Jones and Pete. But I mean, really and truly, it's like wandering into another universe where the series you loved as a kid never and they have noodles. Like literally, there's an entire end cap of Three Investigators stuff.
What the hell?
I know. It's exactly that, right? It's as if it's a weird universe where the Three Investigators never slowed down and went out of print.
Where they became as famous as Harry Potter.
And they're as famous as literally. There's movies. There's a couple of movies. I just can't make it up, right? But in Germany, the Three Investigators are a huge deal. still to this day.
I love that series when I was a kid. Once again, too, that like I said, I always like series that felt like weren't talking down to me, and that's one of the ones I
Yes,
felt
very
less
much
talking
so.
down.
Very much so. Okay, Mike, why don't you wrap
I
out
have
our
one last thing,
suggestions?
and this is something that I personally have purchased that I enjoy a lot. I sent you a link. So
Yeah,
GameStop every year, GameStop, or actually for the last few years, GameStop has had exclusive releases for Dungeons and Dragons. They've had goblets, dice sets, and the stuff it's not very expensive, and it's always really good quality stuff. This is something I love, and I bought numerous copies because it's going to go out of print someday. When it goes out of print, I want to have more than one of these.
Everybody's going to want it when it's gone.
It's a
Is it
Demon Idol
on the screen?
dice roller. The eyes light up, the flame lights up, and you put the dice behind the head, and it rolls out right between his balls there. See?
Wow. Does it get better than that? It can't possibly get better than that.
Look, like I said, I probably have half a dozen copies because I bought one. I got it cheap at GameStop. GameStop is discounting these. If you go into GameStop and they still have one, it's going to be heavily discounted. I bought as many as I could find because I think that has a possibility one day of being a really
grab it while you see it. I got my local store's last one, and I was happy to get it.
The quality is really good, isn't it? They're really solid. Now, I wouldn't drop it on the floor from chest high, probably break in a million pieces. But they're pretty. It's pretty heavy and pretty solid. But yeah, I'm very happy with mine. I like it. I like it a lot. So you probably have to either go on eBay or actually, I think you go to that's the GameStop site. You go to the GameStop site and order it still. They probably don't have a lot of copies left because I believe this is exclusive 2 years ago. They're still selling off. Right before the D&D movie came out, they had a lot of GameStop D&D exclusives that unfortunately they were left holding the bag on quite a few of them. But that's good for me and you because they ended up marking them down. I got some of those goblets with the skull goblets for D&D. I got those really cheap, like $10. But yeah, if you have a GameStop near you, roll in there, look at their discount shelf, see what kind of D&D stuff they have. I actually found, believe it or not, there is a Dungeons and Dragons coffee maker that the GameStop had an exclusive on. I have a copy. It is in my warehouse. The D&D. Now, what makes it special? Nothing. It's just a coffee. It's a coffee maker with the D20 on the outside and the D&D asterisk. That's all it is.
Probably pretty big.
I bought one anyway. What the hell? I couldn't beat the discounted price. I just couldn't walk away from it. So.
Fair enough.
GameStop and look for the discounted D&D exclusive merchandise.
So I mean, we've given you guys a lot of stuff to look at. I think some of it is fairly timely. Like, I wouldn't wait for the Black Friday sales to be over. But we've tried to give you a pretty wide selection of stuff and things that I think you can give and you can feel pretty comfortable about. I think they come from the heart. The recommendations come from the heart. And I think Mike and I both, we remember what resonated with us when we were younger. And I think that goes pretty well. I did have a funny story for the week. With all the other shenanigans of this past week, I forgot to talk about something last week.
Please give us a funny story.
It's too good for words. So my top secret game, we didn't play on Monday night, but we did play last Monday night. And sort of what got lost in the midst of the rant and everything else. You know how you have players that just do dumb things and you can't figure out why they did them? Well, we didn't quite have Edwin versus the Frost Giants, but we had something pretty close. And so we had two of the party who decided to go into a hotel room and begin searching it, but they left the door wide open and they didn't bother to keep somebody watching the door in case the bad guys showed up at the door. And despite having them roll several times for an awareness check, it was only after the third set of rolls that finally one of them noticed a pair of shoes standing in the doorway. And so, it's not a lot of fun to kill off player characters.
Shootout commence.
I mean, you shouldn't really just flat out stone cold execute characters. But if there was a cinematic moment in the game so far, this is probably it, because you had an agent who's sort of dressed up and well, frankly looking a little bit like a lady of the evening, who's crawling around on her hands and knees looking under a bed. And meanwhile, you've got the giant hulking South African mercenary standing in the doorway, and the expression on his face must really just be like, real. I mean, it's just no clue, no self-awareness, no periphery. It was just awful. And so I think I'm going to use that as a teaching moment for my players and say, okay, after our last session, the training wheels are off. And if you don't have enough operational security or you don't have enough self-awareness, it's not my fault if your character, and we're done.
Did a shootout commence, or were they able to talk their way out of it?
It did, and they missed a number of shots. And,
oh dear.
Finally, I actually was kind enough to sort of swing it their way, because otherwise it was just going to be a bloodbath. And you just it just
and I take it their Marriott card was canceled after that because
yes, they will be getting no Hilton honor points going forward.
no honor points for this stay.
No
we're going to charge you because you have bullet holes in your room.
Yes.
Oh man,
it's the madness. Man. It's absolutely just the madness. So yes, no adventure survives contact with the party, and truthfully. Yeah, if you don't have enough awareness to like keep an eye on your 6 as you're on your hands and knees crawling around looking under the bed, and both characters in the room were doing it. Both characters are like, I don't see anything. Roll your dice. I still don't see anything. And the guy in the doorway is like, I should just shoot them, shouldn't I?
that rivals a story I told about the black investigator who went to the white supremacist meeting, and they only realized once they arrived there that he was in the car with him. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to stay in the trunk. This is not gonna work.
This is not gonna go well, buddy. This is not gonna go well. But he ended up saving
their ass. He did save their ass in the end, so it worked out. But yeah, they're just like, I said, do you realize who's in the car with you? They're like, oh yeah, that's not going to be good for this mission. That was really bad. Like,
yeah,
self-awareness zero. But that's what makes games look. Of all the games they ran top secret, that's one of the only things I remember was that scene where they're all sitting there just kind of staring at each other like, oh shit, this is really
yeah, oh that's right. That thing. It's that thing, isn't it?
You'll remember, they'll remember when they were searching the room and they kept failing their rolls, their awareness rolls.
That's right. And I did. I think I'm going to just send out a note to the players and just say, okay, that's it. The kid gloves come off. If you do something so astronomically stupid, you're going to pay the price.
Meanwhile, the guy's in the doorway. He's cleaning his weapon. He's reloading it. He's oiling it. He's getting it off. He pulls out another gun.
Oh my God! It just never ended. It just never ended. And anyway, so enough of that. But
tapping the door. He's tapping the door. Like
it's the only T-shirt moment I've had in a while. But I'm not sure exactly how you would immortalize this. But yes, always check your 6 would definitely be the comment on the back. So anyway, that's all I got.
Wow. Hey, we're going to come in just at 2 hours. My God.
I know. It's crazy.
Perfectly planned.
Oh, geez.
We're getting good at this.
At Foogly's suggestion, I'm going to be putting all these links into the show notes. So if you want to if you didn't catch it during the live, or if you're watching this recorded, they'll be in the show notes. And I'll probably also put them up on the blog side, just to make it an easy reference place for people. There's a lot of good stuff. My wallet's not that deep, and I want to spend way too much money watching this shit. So, God help us.
I'm trying not to spend that much money for the holidays. You guys just maybe spend about $50. Thanks.
Oh, 50.
Jim, thanks, Jim.
I should
at least 50.
There's plenty of choices.
I should be so lucky. Only 50. My God.
Well, I have most of the stuff that I suggested.
All right. Well, there you go.
I didn't have anything that Jim suggested.
So yes, all the recommendations are from the heart. So there you go.
Thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys have been lively. Hey, we're at the 2 hour mark. We still have 30 live viewers.
And look, I'd like to say something, Eric and Jim. We could have spent 2 hours ranting about WotC, but I'm not going to let him steal my time. an hour is the most we're going to give them at this point. They've, I'm sorry, we can't. We're not going to give them the whole show anymore. It's gotten ridiculous. So we gave them an hour. That was enough of a chastisement. We're going to move on. We're not going to spend our time dwelling on people who don't want, who you shouldn't be spending money with anyway. So.
Right. And folks, honestly, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of videos over the next day or two.
Oh, yes.
Giving you different perspectives on this topic. I mean, even Professor GM had a comment on Elon Musk and his comment. So I'm sure there's going to be a follow-up at this point. Thank you to Mike, as always. Jim, thank you. And everybody else. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, so no live stream. Friday may or may not. I got to talk with Glenn. He's itching to do a live stream, but it's a Friday. It's a day off. Fifth Friday, day off. Definitely a live on Saturday, folks. And starting 2025, Inappropriate Characters re-rolled with Ryan, David, Grim Jim, and myself will be once a month on Sundays. So that should be interesting. All right, folks.
That's going to be interesting.
Yes, it's going to be
Yes.
lovely.
The commie, the cop, and the game designer, or the interviewer, the game interviewer.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is, everybody can listen to each other and everybody can talk and have an actual conversation.
That's what it should. It's what it should be. It should be. Look, you don't have to have this. You don't have to come at. Look, Jim and Eric and I don't agree about everything, but we managed to have a wonderful show because we're all intelligent people that listen to everybody else's opinion here at the show. So,
you're just a grognard. I don't have to listen to your shit.
No.
I can just dismiss you.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have a Merry Christmas to you too.
Yeah, whenever Mike annoys me, I'm going to go, you're a grognard.
Grognard.
Dismissed.
Right,
Dismissed.
folks, on that note, be safe, be well. God